Suspended Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mallam Sanusi Lamido, has secured a court injunction stopping the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria's investigation into the books of the CBN. For about 2 days, the Financial Reporting Council had been investigating the CBN under the leadership of its suspended Governor Sanusi over alleged financial recklessness and improper accounting standards. But while the proceeding was on course, the Council took delivery of a court order stopping the probe pending the determination of the matter filed in court by the CBN Governor.
We received court papers from advanced copies of court papers from the solicitors to Mallam Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, asking that we should suspend the procedure we are holding here pending determination of a suit that he has filed in court. So we definitely have to suspend, so we are not in conflict with the law. We'll have to go and study the documentation and then be able to know the next step to take.
But before that court injunction came, the panel has sat for several hours grilling senior officials of the CBN and the Bank of Industry over a wide range of issues. A notable absentee at the hearing was Mallam Sanusi, the suspended CBN governor.
We wrote to him and he sent us he received an acknowledgement. We received acknowledgement from him that he'll be here. Thereafter, he wrote a letter saying that he will want his deputies to be here, to be with him, to provide support. And the deputies are here now. We do hope that even in the course of the program, he'll be coming to make some clarifications as well.
Despite the absence of Sanusi, the proceeding went on, beginning first with some procurement issues.
For procurement in Central Bank is this document that we have in our hands, which we got from the file of the Central Bank. So our staff will show it to the Central Bank officials. If they say, yes, it's this document that they relied on, which is presidential approval, we will then take the issues, because the president said there are breaches of the Procurement Act.
I will confirm that from 2009, when the letter was written, indeed, we have relied on the approval of the president as advised legally in not, let me put it this way, in not going to the Bureau for Public Procurement. Yes, that's correct. That's what we relied on. But let me just say that, we rely on our procurement process. But then, as far as the issues to do with Public Procurement Act, yes, we relied on the approval of President Erado up till last year, when we sought and add on the side of caution to start going to Bureau for Public Procurement.
From procurement, the panel took on the issue of how much the CBN paid the Nigerian Printing and Minting Company for printing of currency.
Having looked at the accounts of NSPN, we were at a loss as to why the central bank is claiming that he paid NSPN 38.23 billion, whereas NSPN's financial statement for group is showing 29.37 trillion. We got the figure of 38.233 billion from the submission made by the central bank to the office of Mr. President.
What Mint normally does is that they don't recognize, even when they print for us, they don't recognize it in their books until invoiced. And oftentimes, because I heard you talk about we paid something for services not rendered, that's a bit too strong. Because today, apart from the work that CBN gives Mint, I would be surprised if more than, I'm sure we give them over 90% of the activities, if 95%. And so, naturally, what usually happens is, at the beginning of the year, we give them our indent. We tell them that, look, these are the currency requirements for the year. They tell us how much they can do. We always give them the first option of refusal. So anything they do for us, It's not like we pay for services not rendered, because we tell them ahead of time that they need to. So we can always say that they exist because of us.
Obviously not satisfied with that answer, the panel nonetheless moved to another subject. This time, payments made to auditors.
The auditors are here to confirm to us whether they received 300 million for 2012 audit and received audit fees of 140 million. Extra audit fees. We don't know, we need working on the reconciliation, and would have liked to get explanations for this.
Occasionally, in the course of our duty, we find out that there may be some critical accounting issues that in the course of the audits we say, look, which are basically not audits as not audits per se. They're not statutory audit related, but they are basic accounting activities. And when these things come up to us, we can then tell them, do you have resources in-house to deal with them? And then they are dealt with. But this is just a general statement. That is not to say that they will not give you details to reconcile those figures. Of course, if there is need for reconciliation, they will do so and give you necessary backup.
Things that are charged to the profit and loss account are different from actual payments. I think we need to understand that. Yes, we can provide evidence of the amounts that were paid as opposed to charges to P&L. But seeing that as it is, we'll meet with the bank, reconcile our records, and we'll probably write formally to the council on this particular aspect. Thank you.
One issue that was central in the report the FRC earlier sent to the president, which eventually led to the suspension of the CBN governor, is that of compliance with the International Financial Reporting Standard, IFRS. The panel wanted to know why the Apex Bank has so far failed to adopt the system.
We have seen that 2010 money was budgeted, 2011, 2012, then 2013, I think you should be able to speak up, because the intentions are not, we are tired of intentions. We want to see actions, because we are also worried as to how the CBN, the moral rights CBN now have to ask banks to submit IFRS-based financial statement to them. We are also worried about capacity for the CBN to look at the IFRS-based statement submitted by banks. These are the challenges that we have.
Yes, we have come to you to say that for 2013, if we can get the exemption, it will be good. I mean, so if you're going to make it a part of your report, not because we don't want to comply, not because we are not in a position to comply, because of the reality of the consolidation. That's what we told you. Our subsidiaries may not be in a position to have an IFRS compliant account that will consolidate with. But then the other moral issue that you raised, Chairman, that I should respond to is that it is true that we draw banks to comply, but like I said, we are not a commercial. We're not a commercial entity, and that has been the debate. But let me say that I'm also very happy to say that we commissioned a report last year, just to mark our seriousness, and that's why you saw the 150 million to prepare us to do a research. So what the research has showed is that, as you have mentioned a few banks that have complied, there are also quite a number of banks, bigger central banks, that have found it impossible to comply with FRS. But we have taken a decision to comply for the moral reason that you mentioned, and because it is a requirement of the law.
We've built up quite significant capacity of our bank examiners in the area of IFRS. And so I think that puts them in a very sound position to be able to supervise commercial banks and their financial statements in the IFRS format.
That dealt with. Attention shifted to the CBN's intervention projects.
Execution of intervention projects across the country. The intention may have been right, but we're not looking for approvals I was given, because that's not mandate of the central bank. We have circularized all those. We send letters to all those that benefited or that assumably benefited. Look at response they are sending to us. The idea to establish the Center of Excellence NDA was conceived by the central bank. It was intended to provide befitting structure for NDA outside the old site that was getting overpopulated due to a larger number of postgraduate intake into the academy.
NDA had no role in the project apart from the voluntary provision of the site to the central bank.
You have shown 4 letters that you have received so far. I will give you at least 15 letters from institutions that have written to thank us very much. At least 15 or 20, I'm sure, including even some of these people. When EFCC visits somebody, you have seen what kind of response do you expect from that? But like I said, we will show you some of the letters of people who have benefited from this intervention and the kind of comments that they have. And I will also show you the requests from others who have seen benefit in this.
The issue was not conclusively dealt with as both sides saw things from different perspectives. But the panel moved on to find out if the CBN got presidential approval to invest in the International Islamic Management Corporation.
On the participation with International Islamic Liquidity Management Corporation, we want to also pass this round, whether this was the approval that was got from Office of Mr. President. We are not against going to participate in the corporation, but we believe that the president would have been properly guided. It is against these backgrounds. So we have to go to page 2 to look at the background. The background is that the CBN is empowered by its enabling legislation to subscribe to the shares of International Islamic Liquidity Management Corporation.
I'm not aware if the governor, in writing this letter, sought legal advice, and I'm not aware, personally, if he sought that legal advice, what the response was. So it's difficult for me to answer the question. I can only conjecture from the letter that the governor has interpreted the aspect of the CBN Act that enables the central bank to maintain reserves as the anchor on which he has based his interpretation.
At this point, the panel turned to the Bank of Industry, querying the debenture certificate BOI issued to the CBN for a 500 billion naira intervention fund for small and medium enterprises.
We can't find board approval for 500 billion. We can't find, the vice president is, his name is brought into it. It means that we are looking at fake memo. We can't find the approval from government. We can't find board approval. And then we are asking, where is the money domiciled? If it's a debenture, the money should be domiciled with BOI. It's not a situation of, we have a way we work together, we are doing the debenture, the money may still be with us. We even can't find the money in central bank. It's not in the central bank. So where is the money actually located? The money is not in the central bank, it's not with BOI. Where is the money?
The sector actually was handicapped. They were receiving no funds at all from the financial market. And the central bank, they're here to speak to that issue, decided that the Bank of Industry should be the agency of government that should be used as a conduit to actually flow funds through the commercial banks into those small businesses. In order to ensure that those funds get to the small businesses or the real sector that was targeted, it was felt that it was necessary for the Bank of Industry to be involved because we know those customers. And we did a due diligence in the sense that every customer of the commercial bank, we call them the participating banks, sent all of the requests from those customers to the Bank of Industry. And we did a review ourselves. After the review, we sent the list of all those that had passed our criteria to the Central Bank of Nigeria. Then the Central Bank went through that list itself, then responded with those that they had approved that they felt met the criteria that had been set for us. When we got the list back, the approval from the Central Bank, we demanded for the security. Each one of those transactions was backed by the participating banks with government securities, either treasury bills or a government bond. And they were backed 110% for each and every case. When we received those treasury bills or the government securities, we disbursed to the commercial banks, which now all lent those funds back to the SMEs or used it to clean out their books so they could lend more. Every 3 months, the Bank of Industry, the Central Bank of Nigeria, together with sometimes the commercial banks through which we send the money, does a monitoring trip to ensure that those funds actually went to each and every one of those customers. This is a continuous exercise. And every quarter, we actually give to the Central Bank a report of all of the activity in every single penny that we have actually disbursed through the commercial banks to those. So the funds have flowed to where they should be. The agreement cannot be read in isolation.
Having dealt with that albeit unsatisfactorily, attention shifted to the AMCON.
We looked at the different guidelines that were issued because CBN have issued up to 6 guidelines on this. You know, we looked at the 4th guideline never included AMCON, and you gave 26 billion to AMCON from this fund. AMCON manages debt; it doesn't receive funds. Under what condition did AMCON get 26 billion on this? That is also an issue. And where did 26 billion come from? We want to know from. If you are the one managing the fund, how did you cross the guideline and get 26 billion to AMCON?
What happened in the particular case of AMCON was that we had received security from those participating commercial banks, and we gave the funds to them. Meanwhile, those commercial banks sold those same assets because they were troubled to AMCON. And when those funds were sold to AMCON, AMCON paid the commercial banks for those funds. But I believe they're in a better position to explain it. But this is, as I know the situation. They sold it to AMCON, and AMCON paid the commercial banks. But we had the security of those commercial banks in our possession for all those assets. AMCON felt it was unfair if whatever the relationship between them and the commercial bank, and wrote to the central bank that since they had the obligation in their books and they had paid those commercial banks, it was only right for them to have the funds that had been given to those commercial banks. The central bank wrote back, approved it. And following that, those funds actually flowed from those commercial banks directly to AMCON. For those that hadn't actually received the funds from the Bank of Industry, on the back of that approval, we now move those funds to AMCON. That is the situation as I do.
At this point, the panel decided to take a 1-hour break. It was on resumption from that break that the injunction for the suspended CBN governor came in, and the proceeding had to be brought to an abrupt end. Chidinma Chikezie, TV 360, Lagos.